Yeah, you bet your butt we're live. Hey, thanks for joining us here, Larry O'Connor. We're live streaming right now on our YouTube and, of course, on our famous locals page. Join our locals page so you can have access to all of these live stream videos, the author book interviews that we do, the political pundit interviews, and just the interesting, cool people interviews that we do. It's free to join. It's just like joining any other social media platform. Yeah, we have some extra special content that you can pay for, but before you try it out, just use a keyword Larry YT if you're finding us on YouTube, or Larry TW if you're finding us on Twitter, and that'll give you some free time to check out our behind the paywall kind of content as well. But thank you for being part of this. It is 3 o'clock on May 25th. It's important for me to let you know that this is commissioning week here in Annapolis. So at any given time, you might hear a squadron of Blue Angels flying overhead. It's actually pretty cool as we're about to launch the careers of another 1,000 naval officers and Marine Corps officers this Friday on the commissioning day. And frankly, that's pretty appropriate considering our guest was a United States Navy SEAL and now a blockbuster New York Times bestselling author and soon to be big-time hotshot Hollywood movie guy. He is, of course, the incredible Jack Carr, and he joins us now on his book tour. Hey, Jack, good to see you.
How's it going? Thanks for having me on. Great to see you.
I was expecting to see your weaponry hanging on the wall behind you there, but you're clearly on your book tour right now.
I'm clearly on my book tour, so everything has to be concealed here.
Well, understandable and probably appropriate considering some of the things we're going to be talking about. Jack, I mean, 2022 is the year of Jack Carr. This is insane. This is your 5th novel, and a lot of people in the publishing world say when you get to the 5th one, now you've got your franchise, and you've got a film of your first book, Terminal List, coming out on Amazon Prime this July. Are you okay, man? Because this is like a dream coming true for you.
It is a dream coming true for me. And it's something I've thought about from my earliest days. The 2 things I wanted to do were serve my country in uniform, specifically as a SEAL, and then write thrillers when that time was over. So to have done one and be doing the other is, I mean, it's surreal. But I just listened to those callings early on and never kind of wavered from the path of doing either of them. So yeah. I feel extremely fortunate that the books are resonating with people, and can't thank everybody enough.
Anyone who knows how I like to interview authors, especially thrillers like this, I read the books and I want to get into it and I want to get into the details of it, but there's so much about you outside of your books that are really cool. And so I'm going to get to it. I promise we're going to get into the blood. But one quick question about your choice to join the Navy, be a Navy SEAL in particular, because I'm entrenched in this commissioning week in Annapolis. My kid is finishing her 3rd year, so next year is her commissioning.
Congratulations, that's awesome.
Thank you. And she's not gonna try for the SEALs. I had to talk her out of that though. She's gonna go. But although she is a cyber major, and there's a lot of cyber warfare in this book, so I want to talk to you about that. But can you tell me when you say you wanted, it was a dream to be a Navy SEAL? It was specifically Navy SEAL for you, right? I mean, when you joined up, you wanted to be a SEAL, but there's no guarantee you get past BUDS, right? There's no guarantee you get past Hell Week. Did you even consider that?
I mean, I considered that. I knew the odds. Even before the days of the internet, you could find out that 80% of the people that show up are not going to make it through, and that's the draw. It's that's the test right there. That's the crucible. So for some people, it's Marine boot camp. For others, it's BUDS. For some, it's the Q course, Army Special Forces. For some, it's flight school. But there's something that draws us all to test ourselves at some point, usually when we're fairly young, between the ages of like 16 and 25 in there somewhere. It seems to be over time throughout history. That seems to be the kind of the sweet spot, kind of almost decade right there. And for me, it was always BUDS because of what I read very early on. My mom was a librarian, so I grew up surrounded by books and this love of reading, and found out what SEALs were when I was about 7. So we went down to the local library to do research. And of course, in the early 80s, there's hardly anything written about SEALs, hardly anything written about special operations in general.
That's hard to believe now.
Yeah, well, exactly. There was no internet. You couldn't just log on and type Navy SEALs into the search bar and spend the next 20 years doing research. No, you could like do it all at your local library and get to the end, essentially, of the internet of the day, which was the library. And I found out during that research that, hey, SEALs were thought of as some of the toughest special operations forces in the world, and the training was some of the hardest ever devised by a modern military. So I heard that, and my path was set. I was already going to join the military before age 7, but at 7, that's when I narrowed it down to the SEAL teams.
And it seems like you retired SEALs go like at this point one of four routes. Either you completely, become hermits and are never seen or heard of again, and you want it that way, or you design, some sort of special weaponry and brand it, or a bourbon perhaps, and brand it with your name and insignia, or you become a writer, or you become a politician. Have you noticed how many special forces guys or EOD guys? Just here locally in DC, Hung Kao, a retired captain EOD, he just won the nomination to run for Congress. It's amazing how many of you are going into politics.
Yeah, there's a few, and I was actually talking to Michael Waltz about this. He's a forces.
He comes on our show a lot.
Florida, great guy. And we were talking about this on my podcast, and he said that the years that had the highest number of veterans in Congress were, I think it was early 70s, somewhere in the early 70s. And that was that World War II generation, Korea generation, getting up to those ages where they could get into politics and do that. And then since then, it had a steady decline. And so, I think we're seeing it. And now I think what he told me was that now we have the least amount, but it doesn't seem like that with the media coverage that some of the foreign military guys get. But I think he said we have the fewest number of veterans serving in Congress right now. But maybe that'll change.
Not after this election, man. There's so many who are running in the primaries right now. Honestly, though, I thank you. You'd be a great elected official, but I thank you for understanding and recognizing in true Andrew Breitbart fashion that you write books, you write novels, you influence the pop culture, you get movies made with Chris Pratt on Amazon Prime. You're going to make more of a difference in changing minds and influencing people. I'm not saying you write your book to influence people, but they have an influence on people. Your first goal is to entertain and engage and really, electrify your audience. But it does have an influence. And I think that that's frankly even more powerful than being in Washington, D.C.
Thank you. I mean, there's the power of popular culture is strong, and it has been for quite some time. Growing up, my touch point with the World War II generation, and my dad's actually as well, was watching Black Sheep Squadron on TV, where Robert Conrad portrayed Pappy Boynton flying, because my dad's father was a Marine aviator, so he never knew his father. So that was our touch point. We had pictures of him in his squadron and his plane. I used to make the models when I was little, and then we would watch that show together. And that was our touch point through popular culture with that generation.
I watched that show, and my buddy Robbie Clough and I in elementary school, we would totally play Baba Black Sheep in the field across from our house. Who didn't want to fly a Corsair? My God, those are a Corvair, excuse me. Those things were amazing with the little dip wings and the All right,
gull wings, beautiful.
In the blood, James Reese. Now it's funny. We spoke on WMAL on Monday, and I asked you, if there's somebody new to the series, do you want them to just dive right in, or should they start with Terminal List? And you said start with Terminal List. Which I totally agree with. I am worried, though, if somebody watches the movie and they see that James Reese, this James Reese has come a long way. Talk about, there's even, I hate to say it, and it's not a spoiler, really, there's some forgiveness and almost restoration here, not just revenge.
There is. And for those listening, don't worry. There's I'm not going on Oprah's book club anytime soon.
I don't want to overstate the case. This is not Dr. Phil approved at all. No,
we're still putting heads on stakes, but I think that's one of the reasons that this character resonated right out of the gate. Was that I think back to my time in uniform, things that happened in Iraq, in Afghanistan, take those emotions and feelings and then apply them directly to a fictional narrative. So I don't have to interview someone who is a sniper in Ramadi or interview someone who is ambushed in Baghdad. I can think about those times. And if my character is ambushed in Los Angeles, California, I can go back and remember what it was like to be ambushed in Baghdad 2006 without interviewing someone and then having their questions get filtered through whatever biases and preconceived notions that I may have, or other books I've read or movies I've seen or that sort of thing. It goes right from my heart and soul directly into the page. But over the course of these novels, the protagonist is evolving, just like we all are. He's on a journey. So I think he's now resonating with people because of that journey, because we're all asking questions. We're trying to move forward. We're trying to take our past successes and failures and take those lessons and apply them going forward as wisdom. And he's on this journey as well. So he's not the exact same person that's just picked up, moved over, and dropped into a new situation in a new novel with exactly the same skill sets, exactly the same in every single one. No, he's evolving just like we all are in life.
It wasn't conscious, I'm sure, but coming out of the COVID pandemic, a lot of us coming out of it, we want revenge, man. We don't ever want to forget what we were put through.
Don't worry, there's plenty.
There is, but I gotta say it's early on, so I don't feel like I'm giving spoilers. It's like chapter 5 or it's early on, a conversation that James Reese has with Caroline that is so moving and so powerful. Was that a real conversation that Jack Carr had at some point with someone in his life?
No, unless it was just with myself and just thinking things through. But that one was my favorite chapter that I've ever written in any of the books. And,
is that right?
That sounds strange because it's not something blowing up, or it's not, a fight in an aircraft that's hurtling towards Earth. It's nothing like that. It's just a conversation between James Reese, my protagonist, and Caroline Hastings, the matriarch of the Hastings family.
Yeah.
And it wasn't initially in my outline. Usually I have themes that I start with that guide the whole process. And that forgiveness theme wasn't in there. Neither was that chapter with Caroline Hastings. I had some X's written down in my outline that I knew that something had to go in there, and I wasn't quite sure what it was going to be. And then when I got to it, it just became so natural. And I love exploring these characters through dialogue. And oftentimes I'll know when I start out, I'll have a list of my characters. I'll have a name and a position like so-and-so, Secret Service agent, bad guy, or something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe one other little item. But for the most part, I don't get to know them until they start interacting through dialogue. And so to have James Reese sit down with Caroline Hastings and have her passing on this wisdom and them having this connection and this conversation together really helps move them forward, develop their characters, and then move the plot forward as well. So I just loved writing that chapter. And it's actually on my website. I put up the preface, the prologue, and the first 3 chapters on my website at officialjackcarr.com, so people can go and read up to that point anyway.
Very cool. It's funny. I was thinking when I read that, and as I was like, I'm glad the terminalist James Reese didn't have a Caroline to talk to, because it would have been a different book, and terminalist needed to be exactly what it was. You mentioned snipers. You've been sort of teasing us with a sniper storyline over the last several books, and that's a main focus of In the Blood. Talk to me about the drama of writing about snipers, because it's a very unique kind of literary drama.
Right. So I always wanted to write a sniper-centric novel, and the theme of this was really a sniper-centric novel of violent resolutions. That was guiding the process as I wrote. But I was a sniper in the SEAL teams, and I got to do that job downrange. It's always something that has interested me, so I've read about it from the earliest of times. And I trained up before I went in the military. While I was in the military, I continued to shoot on my own. I continue to train today. So it's something I really wanted to explore and really wanted to write. But I also didn't want to fall into that trope of having 2 snipers on opposite hillsides or buildings, and they're camouflaged and they're looking for each other and they find each other at the last second and they both shoot at the same time, and one of the bullets goes through the glass, through the scope, into the guy's head. So I wanted to avoid, and I love that as much as the next guy.
I'm like, what's wrong with that?
But it's been done. It's been done once or twice in movies and in books. So I was like, how do I write a sniper-centric novel without that kind of a classic scene in there? And so I wanted to really turn it into a more of a chess game or a 3-dimensional poker game. And so anyway, that was the challenge, to write a sniper-centric novel without that classic sniper scene in it. And I loved doing it. That was
Remind me, and I'm sorry because it's 5 books ago and I'm just an old fart, but wasn't the opening, like the first name scratched off the terminal list in the opening book, a sniper kill? That was a sniper kill.
Had to open it like that just because it's something that's so near and dear to my heart.
That's very cool. How did you deal with, I mentioned COVID and the pandemic. You had to write a book that spans the globe while not being able to, I'm guessing you didn't get to move around unless you got some sort of special deal with some of these countries. Did you just have to go off of your memory from being there, or how did you do that? Just the mechanics of writing this?
Right. So the first one, I'd been to Iraq, been to Afghanistan, been to all the places that I write about in that first novel. The second one, I'd been to many of the places. I'd been to Morocco. I'd already been to Ukraine. I hadn't been to Mozambique. So I was on a plane to Mozambique as I got out of the Navy before I'd even submitted the first novel to Simon & Schuster, because I always knew I was going to write a second novel.
Wait. You didn't just personally sail a little beat up sailboat across the Atlantic to Mozambique like you did in I am so pissed at you. I thought that you personally did that sail.
Well, I got to touch base with Jimmy Spithill, who's a America's Cup skipper, who's a good friend of mine. So I got to ask him how one would do that with his skill set.
What a pussy you are, Jack Carr. Come on, suck it up, man.
Maybe next time. Maybe we'll make Chris Pratt do that for season 2. getting character.
Yeah, make him do it. That's
They'll
right.
love it. They'll love it. But yeah, I did that one. And then for the third one, I went to Kamchatka Peninsula, Russia, which is just south of Siberia, because it plays such an important role in that story in Savage Son. And that's one I've been wanting to write since the 6th grade when I first read The Most Dangerous Game by Richard Connell. I've always wanted to write, even back then, a thriller that paid tribute to that short story. Then for the next one, Devil's Hand, luckily, that's when COVID hit. But luckily, that one was deep into research on bioweapons, biodefense weapons. So I got to do a lot of that online through books, getting on telephone calls with people, doing interviews, that sort of a thing. So I got lucky there. But this one, I really wanted to go to Israel because there's a section in the middle where Israel plays an important role. But like you said, this is still COVID times, and Israel in particular was very difficult about getting in. So it was shut down for everyone, and then it was open only to Israeli citizens. Then it was shut down again, and then so it was not possible to go there. So I did as much research as I could, and then I sent it. I sent the whole book, but I wanted the focus for who I sent it to be in that middle section on Israel, to a family in Israel, and that has 3 generations there. So they had teenagers reading it, and the grandmother at 101 reading it. And they could not believe, all of them, that I hadn't gone there and put boots on the ground with how I described things. So that made me feel really good, at least. But I will get there at some point, and I'll have to bring Israel back into another book because I've always wanted to go.
Dude, I'm thinking like a Jack Carr reading fan special tour to Israel or something, right? I mean, we would all pay for that, I assure you. By the way, let me just pause for a moment. I jokingly called Jack Carr a pussy just now. That wasn't for real. That was just a joke. All right, Jack, we're cool. We're
just keep that head rotating.
Shit. All right. Let's move on to a couple of the other. Oh, speaking of being intimidated and terrified of you, the interrogation stuff. See, I thought I had read it all in Brad Thor's books, man. And what is it with you guys coming up with new ways to just absolutely break a human being down to their vital core to get information out of them?
You know, once again, you got to get creative. Like there's, you can't just shoot him in the other knee anymore.
So is this stuff real though? Is this, I don't know. Are you even allowed to say if it's real or not? Oh, see, there you go. Yeah.
I'll leave that up to the reader to decide.
This isn't something you're going to be trained in necessarily. I mean, obviously you guys are trained in interrogation techniques. Were you part of the military when things started to get, like politically correct? Like suddenly there was this shift and it's like, oh, I can't do that stuff anymore. How do you untrain that stuff?
Yeah, so luckily, my commanders always interpreted the rules of engagement in a way that made sense. And then when I got to those levels, because the rules of engagement really are theater wide, and the politics comes into play when how senior level leaders interpret those rules of engagement. You always have the inherent right to self-defense regardless. So it really comes down to training and continuing to talk about those rules of engagement in a way that's practical and makes sense, rather than getting a brief from a JAG officer, for 30 minutes prior to a deployment. And next thing you know, you're on a gun truck and someone's pulling out a cell phone and looking at something strange in the road. And you don't know if you can shoot that person or not when there's a high threat of IEDs in the area. So you don't want that 19-year-old kid, 20-year-old kid, 21-year-old kid on that 50 cal thinking about, is this legal, as that person hits that button and then blows up the car in front or something along those lines. So it has to be worked into training. It has to be talked about, and senior level leaders have to be so clear with those rules of engagement instead of just getting the politics involved and having that morph their interpretation and put their soldiers' lives at risk.
Yeah, but the people in the military who put their lives at risk, or the men in their command's lives at risk, they have such respect for the JAG officers. I'm shocked that
you can get some good ones. You can definitely get some good ones, and then you can not get some good ones.
The other ones, there's a reason why Jagoff is in the title, Jag Officer, I think.
I haven't heard that. I might use that in the book. That's fantastic.
Okay. There you go. It's all yours. Cyber warfare. By the way, I mean, Russia. All right. I'm getting it. Obviously, Russia is a bad guy in the real headlines of the world, and between you and Thor and Silva, it's like, Russia is clearly something that's on your radar, and what goes on in Russia with regard to their influence in this country via information warfare. Are we taking it seriously? I know everyone's talking about it, but what are we actually doing about it?
Well, I explore a little bit of that in this book, and Russia really came into my books in the second novel, in True Believer, where I have things building towards a Russian invasion of Ukraine back in 2019. And my research for that indicated that after 2022, Russia would not be able to field an army of the same numbers that they've been fielding for the past couple decades. So they were going to invade by 2022 or not at all. So it shouldn't have come as a surprise to anyone that this was going to happen. But this is a challenge now in writing the second season of the Terminal List True Believer for Amazon, in that I can't have things building towards a Russian invasion of Ukraine if it's already happened. So now I have to get very creative. So the Russians really entered my books in that second one, and then stayed with them because it's a continuing storyline. There's resolutions for each of these books, but there's just a little bit that I leave out there that makes people hopefully want to get that next book, and that's the art to it right there.
Yeah,
but the Russians are giving us a lot to work with these days, that's for sure. As
well, and a lot of what we read in the Blood is stuff that we know is happening. We've learned is happening in terms of their information warfare and their and you talk quite a bit here about how we've sort of already lost a lot of it. I don't say lost, but we are so controlled by social media and by information and news algorithms. It's hard to tell who the good guys are from the bad guys.
It is, especially when division benefits who? Politicians to get reelected, and then tech companies also to get us to take an action, whatever that action may be. And now we're at the point where they can actually influence not just our behaviors and buying habits, but our thoughts. So
are you buying the Elon Musk thing? I mean, I like him because he's pissing off all the people I like it when they get pissed off. But at the same time, I mean, there's no reason to necessarily trust him. I don't want to trust any single individual with this kind of power.
Well, I mean, we're certainly not at a loss for history of wealthy individuals buying news organizations in this country. So but we're focused on this one in particular. But with Ted Turner or anybody else, Jeff Bezos, it's kind of like okay, or many other,
or William Randolph Hearst,
exactly.
Or just you're right.
It has some history there. It's just this one is once again controlling our thoughts and behaviors. It is not abnormal. It's not a new paradigm whatsoever. But what are they doing? Once again, controlling our thoughts and behaviors because they want us to think that it's abnormal, but it's not.
Yeah, it's more than just a lot of like full-page screaming headlines that you can pass at the newsstand when you're on the way to Subway in 1932.
Exactly.
This is always in front of you. It's in your pocket. Speaking of politics, listen, you're no fan of politicians all the way back from the first book, obviously, and the commander of the Pentagon, I think.
Once again, they give me a lot to work with. All right.
Yes. Well, given today, you're talking about the war in Ukraine. I mean, I am really triggered by politicians openly saying we are in a proxy war with Russia right now. This is a nuclear power. Even though I think the Ukrainians are obviously the victims here and I'm on their side, at the same time, I mean, I feel like they're a whisker away of just saying, fuck it, we're going to commit our troops to this fight. It's not necessarily our fight yet, is it? You tell me, you know this stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know this stuff, but I can look to the pages of history, certainly. And that's what our senior level military leaders and our elected representatives, not leaders, but elected representatives, have failed to do time and time again. They're thinking in terms of election cycles, very short election cycles, typically 4 years, maybe 8 for the real deep thinkers among us. But if you go back to the end of World War II, end of the Cold War, promises made, not necessarily treaties, but you can see that this was, I don't like to say inevitable, but you can certainly see that there were mistakes made along the way that I hope we can learn from going forward to avoid some of these things in the future. But what does give me hope about, I mean, we were engaged with the Soviet Union in proxy wars throughout the entire Cold War period. But now we have a situation where, okay, possible do the Russians have nuclear weapons? That's the thing. Do they have nukes? Yes, they do. Do they have tactical nukes? Yes, they do. Can they use them? Will they use them? That's the question. And what makes me feel better about thinking that they will not is that really their only ally, right? Not their only, but their biggest ally is China. And if they were to use a tactical nuclear weapon, it would be very hard for China to continue to support Russia. So I think that gives us a little bit of breathing room there and something to leverage at the same time.
So the book is in the Blood, and I think you should start with Terminal List. The other reason why you should start with Terminal List is because it'll prepare you for this July. Chris Pratt will personify James Reese so it's a series, right? What did they do, like 8 episodes or 10 episodes?
8 episodes coming in hot 4th of July weekend, July 1st, and it is looking good. It's looking good.
You must be just out of your mind. The trailer looks incredible, and Chris Pratt is perfect. I mean, literally, was there anyone else? You can't say, but in your mind, it must have been when someone popped this out. You must have been, do it, signed, done.
Well, I thought of him playing the role as I was typing
Really?
before Guardians of the Galaxy, before the Avengers, before Jurassic World, when he was Andy Dwyer in Parks and Rec, and when he had a small role as a SEAL in Zero Dark 30, because I saw that transformation that he made to be a SEAL, and I thought of back to the 80s, and I thought of Tom Hanks playing in all these comedies and then taking a risk with Philadelphia and being able to do whatever he wanted from then on. So I thought, who's that actor who hasn't done something dark, hasn't done something like violent and gritty yet, that might need to do that might need to take a risk? And I thought, that's Chris Pratt. And then as I typed, he kind of rose to A-lister prominence. And then a friend in the SEAL teams gave him a copy of the novel before it even hit stands. And he read it and called the next week and wanted to option it.
You know, it's funny. Somebody said to me, "Oh no, the cool thing about this is he's a little politically incorrect, just like Jack Carr." And I was like, "What has Chris Pratt ever actually said or done to be politically correct? He has a deep, abiding faith in Christ, and he wears it on his sleeve. That's it." It's so weird to me, this world we're living in, but I guess there is some symmetry there, I suppose.
Oh yeah, he was the perfect guy for the role, and he crushed it. He knocked it out of the park. He could not have done a better job, and I could not be more thrilled.
Oh, hold on though. I mean, you're not going to criticize it, but I will. Again, I'm just going off the trailer. The beard, I don't know if it works. Your beard, that's a man's beard. His beard doesn't look quite right on his face.
I'll let him know. I'll let him know. He's sensitive about it. So
is he?
Yeah. So let's edit that part out. Then that's not kind. That's not.
Right. No, I'm not bad. Well, all right. You're right. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. It's easy for me. I'm lobbing grenades here from Annapolis. It doesn't matter. What is the last thing I wanted to ask you? I have a lot more I want to ask you about, but real fast, just because our book club, especially our hardcore members of our club here, they love talking about the writing process. Where I just imagine you're shut away in the log cabin doing this. What is your?
Well, that's ideal, and that's what I did this time because three kids, wife, dog, in-laws, chaos constantly. It was 16, 14, 11 are the ages of the kids. Time I went to a Airbnb log cabin, and it was so great because it was so efficient in that there was a wood burning stove there. I could just go outside, chop some wood, throw it in the wood burning stove, a tiny little table, tiny little couch, little kitchen, bathroom, bedroom. And I could do everything within this tiny little space. So as I was typing, and if I got up, needed to think about something, grab a snack, I could walk 5 feet, open the fridge, walk right back, sit back down and keep going. No one was going to interrupt me because I wasn't physically in the act of typing. And that tends to happen at home. For those who work at home, they will know exactly what I'm talking about. So that is ideal. It's just to be locked away somewhere. But for me, it doesn't matter. I don't need a view. I don't need anything. I just need quiet and uninterrupted time. So but the process really is starting with a theme and a one-page executive summary and a title, because I don't like to be typing away worried about a title and wondering, I hope I can think of a good title here. I don't like any bandwidth expended anywhere else other than right into the pages. So I take that one-page executive summary, and what I do is I ask the question, hey, is this worth a year of my life? This one-page executive summary that I've written up. And if the answer is yes, then I read it again and say, if someone else were to read this, would it be worth them spending their time that they're never going to get back in these pages or listening to it on audiobook? Is it going to add value to their life? So if the question to that is yes, then boom, I'm all in. Turn that into an outline and then turn the outline into the narrative.
Very cool. That I guess that makes sense. That's how it's so focused. It's so clean. Everything makes sense. There's no holes in any of this stuff. And I know that seems like a no-brainer, but you'd be surprised how many of these books, especially when you get a few books in, it's like, come on, when you read some of it. Not with Jack Carr's books. By the way, and Danger Close, unbelievably successful. Popular, you're still committed to that. So you do the Danger Close show while you're working on all this other stuff. Very impressive. Are there thoughts of going on to another platform with Danger Close and people talk to you?
We got a couple things in the fire, a couple irons in the fire here. So, but right now focusing on book 6, getting that done, and then working on the outline for the season 2, if we do it, of Terminalist True Believer. So,
all right,
so
well,
we shall see.
You know where to go when you're ready to announce the next step with Danger Cliffs.
Perfect.
Jack, I know how busy you are. I appreciate you giving us time today. You're so easy to talk to, and I'd love to talk to you more, but I know we're up against it. But thank you for everything, and thanks for giving us an escape with your books. It's so important these days, and this is a fantastic summer read. I hope everybody gets it.
I appreciate that. No, thanks for taking the time.
You bet, man. Thank you so much. That is Jack Carr, boys and girls, and he's the real deal. Thank you to all of our OOC members there at Locals. Once again, free to join Locals. It's just like any other social media platform, except there's no censors, there's no Zuckerberg, there's no oversight, there's no, oh, I don't like that you mispronounced somebody, so you'll be deleted forever. None of that shit goes on at Locals. Join it. Start your own Locals page. Join other people. Become friends. See what they've got. You'll see the content and post stuff on my page. Feel free to post your own content on my page, as long as it's not pornography or racist and shit. Obviously, but that's just normal human beings. You're not going to do that kind of thing. And then yes, we've got some extra special content that we keep behind the paywall. And if you want to check that out, just use the free Larry TW if you found us from Twitter, or Larry YT if you found us from YouTube. Is that it? That is it. That's all I got. Goodbye.